When the Nationals traded Mackenzie Gore this offseason, it became likely that C.J. Abrams was also going to be traded. Fast forward through the offseason, he didn't get dealt. They hung on to him. They haven't moved him to second base where he would better play defensively. They've still got him at shortstop, and he's off to a rip-roaring start. We've seen him have great Aprils before. He generally starts fast. And we'll see, maybe this could be a lot like any other year. But there is hope this time, Danny, because of this coaching staff using new data, new technology, and having gotten great results up and down the order from a lot of guys, that maybe this is different. Maybe he will be more consistent. Maybe the really bad months, because the book on him in the past was he would have these months where he plays like an MVP, legitimately. Yep. And then he has months where he plays, and I'm not exaggerating, like at a bottom 5 offensive level in the sport in terms of OPS and exploits at the plate. And if you could just make the really bad months kind of league average or just below average months instead of terrible.
Yeah, even regular bad. You have a great season.
He's a fringe all-star anyway. Now you become better than an all-star. Now you become like a star player. And that has always kind of been the upside for this guy that's only 25 years old, who was drafted in the top 6, who could steal 35 bases and hit 25 home runs and plays up the middle at a premium position. But the question I have is, as he's gotten off to this amazing start, where as of the last game the Nats played, they were off yesterday, he was the major league leader with 14 runs batted in. He's got more RBI right now, 11 games into a Nats season, than any National has ever had. He's got 4 home runs, which at the time he last played a game was one off the pace in the big leagues. He's hitting about 290 with a 960 ops. Is the first half of C.J. Abrams' season about improving his trade stock so that they can flip him for prospects? Or do we think there's actually a future where he could be the face of this entire thing moving forward?
This is the question for this organization this year. I really believe that. How and when Dylan Cruz comes back up and the kind of year he has and, the numbers James Wood puts up, et cetera. This C.J. Abrams question is the one. I've gone back and forth on this. I've been talking about this with anybody who will listen, fans, friends, acquaintances, people that don't like me, anybody that wants to talk about it. It's been going on. I go back and forth, Grant. I half the time I go, let's say you're a new regime coming in. Regardless of what you've heard, there's some holdover in the staff, and you get your scouting report, you figure it out. Hey, what were the pitfalls? What happened off the field? We kind of know. Some of the same habits, some of the same bad routines. You see base running mistakes. You see not hustling. You see some of the same errors that he was making 5 years ago. Come on, what are we doing? Then you see these, oh my God, jaw-dropping, world-class athlete moments where, as you said, he has months where he's the MVP. And maybe you go, we know what we're doing. We'll get the best out of him, and he'll be an incredible asset for us, and he's a building block. Or you could go, let's get something incredible out of him. We'll never have a better chance to sell high because he's not the type of dude we want to be the face of the franchise. How they view him, I think, will be an unbelievable window into how they think.
Well, this, to me, is what's really surprising. I think it is true that he is both incredibly athletic and also probably never going to be an above-average shortstop. He is exceptional with his athleticism, and he can make dazzling, sparkling plays. In fact, the other night, he made this great play going into the 5-5 hole for a 6-4 put-out to end an inning. It was a couple batters after a routine two-hopper, as you just referenced, hit off of his mitt and cost Cade Cavalli 11 more pitches and 2 runs. And that routine play that he didn't make, whether it's concentration or just being locked in pre-pitch, whatever it is, I am now of the belief, I've seen enough to say this is just what it's always going to be. We're 500-plus games in. We're 2,000-plus at-bats in. I don't think there's some renaissance coming. Part of this is not even C.J. Abrams' fault. He has been organizationally basically in Washington since his infancy in 2023, and he's never been in a really professional veteran clubhouse. Like if he was around on that 19 World Series team with all of those guys that they called, what was the word, the viejos or something? It was like the old guys. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
If he was in that clubhouse, I think it's a completely different world. I think it's a completely different type of pro, but he hasn't had that. He hasn't had anyone to say, hey man, what are you doing going out and getting in trouble in Chicago? Why is this happening? So I don't even blame him for all of what's happened. Some of it now is at some point you got to grow up. It's up to you. And I think they've been pretty content, it seems like. He's walked the straight, the narrow, hasn't gotten in trouble or anything since he got booted off the team at the end of the year a couple seasons back. But if you're looking at his contract situation, he has 2 years left after this one and then hits free agency. So 2027 and 2028. Mackenzie Gore was traded in the offseason prior to having 2 years left. And in Texas, got off to a fast start, had a great first outing. He's going to try to help pitch them into the postseason. I think he's in line for a big year. But if they trade him at the same time they traded Gore, it would be this offseason. I just think you get more for him as a position player, as a hitter, especially if he's going well, if you were to trade him in season, and then the team acquiring him gets 3 postseasons of him instead of 2. So it's very much on the table that you trade him. And while he gets off to this great start, it makes you think every home run, every time he strings a 2 or 3 hit performance together, every time he spits on a couple pitches and walks, and the walk rate goes up from last year, and he looks like a more professional, better hitter at bat to at bat. Is that a little bit better return that you're going to get? So I don't know how to program this. Should they be trying to extend him, I guess, is the question I have for Nats fans. Would you be interested? He's not a Boris guy. He's with Rock Nation. He, supposedly, from the people I've talked to in and around his camp, is a huge, huge, huge fan of being in D.C. and would want to be here. But this is not like a James Wood where you're completely sold on everything about the player, right? Like, this is a guy that they've had to clean up some of the work habits and some of the things with. Would you be willing to give him a huge extension?
So I would not. And I know I'm probably in the minority because people are going to look at the offensive stats and go, "What, are you kidding me? He's got a finally a competent regime, a coaching staff that's working with him, and he's tearing the cover off the ball, as you said, spitting on close pitches, putting together a bunch of good at-bats." As someone, we go over to the ballpark, I'm watching a pregame infield routine. Now, this is a small sample, but it's given what's kind of been going on in the past. Everybody else is working their what's off, and they haven't gotten off to a good defensive start as a team, right? I'm watching, Brady House taking a great prep step, working on some of the things that they're trying to implement, and is making plays, as is Vivas, as is Nunez, as is Jose Tena, and everybody else. And Abrams makes 3 or 4 errors. And I'm not talking about, that's bad hop, bad luck. It's just sort of he's going through the motions. And those are the kind of things where, and it sounds like I'm ripping the guy. I don't mean to at all. But it's the kind of thing where if I'm going to say I'm going to have a building block player, that guy is going to be the person that's leading that kind of situation, not trailing in it, not going through the motions, right? And again, that's a small window into it, but it manifests in games. This is among by any kind of advanced metric, one of the least effective shortstops in the sport. And if you're going, well, he could just be the second baseman, I think it's still part of the same sort of pattern here. If you look at defensive runs saved, if you look at StatCast fielding run value and runs above average, aka what are you doing to help save runs? He's among the worst in the sport. He's already a negative player through 2 weeks. And, guys like Mason Wynn, who we just saw, guys like Bobby Witt are already, working towards half a dozen.
Well, no, he's a bad defensive shortstop. Like, that is, I don't think, debatable at this point. But I wouldn't keep him at shortstop, if I'm being honest. So here would be my plan, and I want to see if you'd sign off on this. We are currently seeing around baseball that there are tons of teams and a bunch of executives that are getting extensions done.
It is the trend.
In some cases, guys who haven't gotten to the big leagues. Even Scott Boras did one of these recently. Now, make no mistake about it, I don't think that was Scott Boras' idea. I don't think he was overly excited about it. But Cooper Pratt, one of his clients with the Milwaukee Brewers, who's a glove-first infielder, that is behind the glove pretty considerably, who is playing right now at AAA Nashville with the Sounds, the AAA affiliate of the Brewers. He just signed one of these extensions before he ever got to the big leagues at 21 years old. And you never see this with Boris guys. But again, he works for the player. So if Pratt's going, hey, this will really help me out, he goes to the agent and says, I don't want to be pressing. I don't want to be thinking early in my career about trying to hit and put pressure on myself. Let's just get a deal in place. And you're begging the agent. They're going to advise you not to do it. But eventually, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. And that happened. But you're seeing this now. Connor Griffin just did a 9-year deal, the super prospect, the number 1 overall prospect in baseball. This is happening. In fact, Paul Taboni was on with the Junkies this week. I think they asked him specifically about Dalen Lyle, if memory serves, because I was listening to the interview and possibly doing an extension, and he answered the question. But I think that this is actually interesting for our Abrams conversation, if we could play that. This was Taboni, who's on the Junkies every Wednesday right here on The Fan.
It's been a popular thing amongst the league over the course of the especially last month or two. I came from Boston. There was probably 6 or 7 players we did it with Roman Anthony and Crochet and
Right.
Theo and Saddam Raphael and these guys. So, yeah, I mean, it's something that I have some history with, and I think it's just like one of kind of many levers you can pull to create a really good team over the long run. So, yeah, it'll be something that's on our mind, not just over the course of the next couple of months, but over the next few years, just doing these extensions generally.
Well, the one you got.
So that was actually great because that's more broadly on teams doing the extensions.
Yep.
They actually singled in on Dalen Lyle, and he talked about, well, yeah, you might be able to do it with him because someone says, do it with James Wood. And they're like, yeah, right, James Wood isn't doing it. And the Junkies kind of start arguing with the Boney on the line. And he's like, what you guys are getting at is the player's got to want to do it. The agent has to want to do it.
Yeah, Brady House was brought up as well as a potential candidate. But it's that's the idea, is that's now in vogue.
I don't know if Abrams and Rock Nation, his agency, are team, let's get this done or let's do this. But here is what I would suggest. Would you be interested in my thought process of, I'm moving him to second base long term. He can play out shortstop the rest of this season. I don't really have a solution or an answer anyway. I'd be moving Nasim Nunez over and just flip their positions, and I'd get better defense.
Keeping the seat warm, hopefully, until Eli Willits is ready to go in a year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, well, hopefully it's not Nasim till that. I get a big league shortstop at some point in the next couple of years because right now Eli Willits is in single A, but yeah, they need somebody until, if it's Seaver King or whatever, it is the stopgap. But my idea would be, all right, let's look at the second base market. The highest paid second baseman in baseball right now is Marcus Semien at $7 and $175. That's $25 million per year. Nico Horner just got an extension with the Cubs, who's a platinum glove, elite defensive player, but he's not nearly as good an offensive player, really, as C.J. Abrams is. He just got $23.5 million a year. So I think it's going to take more than that. But if I go to him and say, I'm going to make you the highest paid second baseman in baseball on an extension at 7 years right now and $26 million a year. So like $182 million for C.J. Abrams. And then because you're paying him at second, it's way less than you would be paying a shortstop. You're telling him you're going to play second under this deal for the remainder starting next year, at some point this year if we move you over, whatever. Is that something you could get down with? 7 and 182 at 26 per.
That is certainly a good plan. Again, he is not a guy that I would extend, regardless of position, because it's not about, okay, you can hide his defense a little bit from short to second, which is true. He'll be a better second baseman.
I think he'd be a very solid league average second baseman.
I think so too.
Longer, you get more instincts, or rather reaction time.
Yep.
The lack
Everything
of
about it's
concentration
easier.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like that won't matter as much.
Agreed. I just, there are guys in this org right now that I would extend, and he's not one of them. I would be using this as an opportunity to audition for others, and I would try to get a haul back.
It's just hard to find guys up the middle.
Agreed.
That can hit 25 homers, which I think he can. He has not yet, for the record. I think he's tapped out at 20 home runs. But there's more in the tank. Hasn't had coaching like he's going to have this year. I do believe this is a chance this season that we could see him hit close to 25 homers. And we've seen him steal as many as 30 bases in consecutive years after stealing 47 bags. The floor is 30.
Yeah.
Like he's almost stolen 50 bases.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be a 25 homer, 35 steal guy.
I do too.
That is a perennial all-star. And up the middle, I mean, that's just a really valuable thing. If you have a 775 OPS guy, let's say, who can do those things, those do not grow on trees, man.
Mm-mm.
So I'm not in a rush to get rid of that. Now, the question is, does his timeline work with their plan to win again? And if you don't extend him, the answer is no, because not unlike Gore, he is going to be a free agent after 2 seasons, and they're not going to be good yet, or they're going to be just starting to get good. So if you don't plan on extending him, then they absolutely should trade him at the deadline this year. But that's why I'm just so intrigued with his start to the season. I think he's probably like a career going to hit around 255, which is still above league average for the most part at this point. But his OPS plus, Danny, 11% above league average last year, 9% above league average the year before. Right now it's 175, which is probably not sustainable. But if he's a 750, 760 OPS guy who's 10 to 15% above league average offensively at second base, I would be willing to pay that money if he's willing to stay.
I don't. It makes a lot of sense, the point that you're making, and I don't necessarily disagree with any of that part of it on paper. It's also, though, what would make him, you mentioned the timeline. That's also a key backdrop of it, too, right? For the team as to when they think they're going to be able to compete. That's also what makes him such a great asset that you could maybe get a great haul for, right? All those things that you just mentioned is part of a sales pitch. It's like a great house that you'd want to live in is also one that someone else would probably want to live in, and they'd want to buy it, too. Then you get a market for it. Again, this decision is fascinating for me. It'll give us a window into a couple things. And I'm glad you mentioned the timeline. Let's say, sake of argument, they do extend C.J. Abrams at whatever value, whether it's as a shortstop long term or they move him to second, which I think they should.
But I want to be careful about something. I think it would be a terrible idea to extend him at shortstop value.
Agreed.
Because at that position, he is a defensive kind of liability longer term, if that makes sense.
It does.
And like Trey Turner got this mega deal with the Philadelphia Phillies, where he got an 11-year contract, and that's going to be an albatross because he's already struggling a bit defensively at shortstop. And I don't think you can pay him shortstop money and then move him to second and have that look good. So I think you have to pay him top of the market second base money. But there's also an inherent value, Danny, and we've talked about this. They got to get one of these done at some point.
They got to get one. And that's the point. And again, it's a very good case that you have laid out. So
the risk is less with him, wouldn't you say, than a Brady House, who you've seen hit like this for 2 weeks? You kind of know what CJ is, for better or worse.
You've got a pretty good data set.
The risk with him, as much as I love Dalen Lyle, hand up, that's my guy. I know what CJ is. Dalen Lyle had an amazing year last year. He's off to a decent start. You don't really know what he's going to be. You're still projecting on a lot of things.
Totally. And maybe that helps, you take a gamble and get one that's more affordable because there aren't the deposits in the bank. I mean, it's a push and pull. But you're 100% right that they need to get one. They need to show the fans, look, you like this guy? You're getting used to seeing him. We put him on some brochures. He's going to be here, and it's safe to buy his jersey, right? Because he's going to be here for a while. But I want to get back to one thing. You mentioned the timeline. If they do extend him, whether it's at short or second, but let's say they do, that gives you a window into going, okay, well, maybe they think that post-lockout, whatever the hell this happens, will be a time where they're ready to pull the lever and say, we can go now. We can start competing right now.
Maybe.
If they don't, doesn't that push the timeline back? In theory? I mean, if it's kids or if it's big league ready guys, maybe the haul depends on
if they trade him?
If they trade him.
Well, yeah, I think if they trade him, it is an indication that they don't think they're ready to compete big until at the earliest, like 2028, 29.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, common sense. I mean, look at the team, look at the money spent, look at the roster. They're not ready. But he's got 2 years after this, which is 27 and 28. If you trade him, it means the earliest you can compete is 29, which is probably true. Why would we hang on to him if we're not extending him? It's the old Soto corollary. You don't necessarily want to trade guys like this well before you have to.
You could be the worst team in the league with Juan Soto, which they were.
It doesn't make sense to hold on.
Yeah.
Because it's just like having furniture in your backyard or something that you use occasionally, but someone comes by your house and goes, hey, I'll give you $1,000 for this right now, or I'll come back a year from now and give you $500, or I'll come back a year after that and I'll give you $250. You're like, well, I need it for at least a year and a half. Just take the $1,000 now.
Yeah.
What's the difference? That's where the value is. I want to open up the phones on this for Nats fans if you guys want to hop in. 800-636-1067. Would you be interested in a C.J. Abrams extension, or do you just hope that he balls out in the first half of this season and they can turn him into the most talented return possible to help what is a flourishing, improving system at the minor league level? 800-636-1067.